A little bit, yeah.
Not much compared to all those other geological ages.
Right.
Basically.
This is where it says this is where Mauna Loa Observatory went online and began measuring. And even that, we're going to devote an episode 2 to looking at the ways of measuring carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And there's primarily 2 ways that you can measure paleo-atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations. One is the ice cores, but those have been challenged that they're maybe not correct. Okay. The other one is through stomatal density of leaves. We'll talk about that because as carbon dioxide increases, we'll put up the little apertures in leaves that draw in the carbon dioxide that drives photosynthesis. Those apertures, that's the stomata. The stomata, if the carbon dioxide goes down, the stomata density increases. The apertures enlarge in order to try to draw in more carbon dioxide. So as the carbon dioxide, atmospheric carbon dioxide is enriched, then they can shut down and they don't need to bring in as much carbon dioxide. I mean, they don't need
as big of an aperture.
And that protects them. And that also protects them from dehydration.
Yes.
They don't have,
Yes. Exactly.
Because when they don't dehydrate.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, and we're going to talk about that a lot. We're going to at least devote at least 1, maybe 2 episodes to looking at the whole carbon cycle.
Excellent.
Because it's extremely interesting to actually look at. But yeah, so there's a divergence between the stomatal density record and the ice core record. And that's very interesting in itself, and it calls into question some of the assumptions about carbon dioxide concentration. In other words, there may have been times when the carbon dioxide concentration did go up compared to what the ice core records are saying.
Oh, okay.
But the general conclusion here is I think is pretty accurate that we're actually in one of the geologically lowest periods of carbon dioxide concentration.
Yeah, I mean, like if you just look at that graph, it seems like an average over all time would be somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000.
Yeah, exactly.
ppm.
Yes.
Which is,
and life flourished. With that concentration, and there was not a runaway heating of the earth, a catastrophic runaway heating of the earth. And what we saw, in fact, is that there's no correlation between the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the temperature of the earth.
You're right.
There's a role, of course. Carbon dioxide plays a role, and we're going to look into that. But it's not in the driver's seat. And that's what, the impression is that they're trying to create is that carbon dioxide is, in fact, in the driver's seat. And we don't need to look at anything else. We don't need to look at other factors. I will show you. Let's see.
Yeah, and the other big thing that they always mention is the melting of glaciers and the rising of sea level.
Mm-hmm.
So there should be, we've got all these sea level graphs and glacial concentration graphs. It'd be interesting to see the correlation.
I'm working on one right now. This was just came out within the last couple of months, 2 papers in Quaternary Science Reviews. The first paper looks at the lowland alluvial plain in the vicinity of Tokyo, Japan, which is right next to Tokyo Bay. So they use 2 things. They use the sea level index points, which is the acronym is SLIP or SLIPS, which is sea level index points, and the other one is limiting data points.
There's an insane camera.
And, so sea level index points, it's like if you know that the sea level, first you have limiting data points, which will tell you that at a given time, within a given time range, what was the highest sea level was at, what was the lowest it was at. Now between those 2, you have the sea level index points, which will tell you, okay, in between those 2 at given times, where was the sea level at a given time?
Yeah.
So that's what they do is they can establish that through a number of proxies. Mostly it's going to be sediment cores, because when sea level rises, it might drown a landscape. There will be peat bogs and swamps adjacent, let's say, to it. If the sea level retracts, those those peat swamps and things will dry out. They'll get different vegetation on them. If the sea level rises, of course, then you're going to have marine life leaving fossils behind that can be identified. So anyways, what this Japanese geologist, what he did was compile a series of 74 flips, sea level index points, and 241 limiting data points over this particular region. He's with the Geological Survey of Japan. So he was able to reconstruct the sea level history of this particular area. Okay, so this is Tokyo Bay. This is the city of Tokyo. So what they did was they looked at this area right here, right? Because sea has encroached upon this area. I want you to look right over here. You see this kind of smooth area with this line right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the share for a second. And then I'm going to go to a map of that area. And this is the mid-Holocene sea level high stand. Got that? Mid-Holocene. So we're looking at around 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. Mid-Holocene sea level high stand. So now take a look at this graph right here. Remember I showed you to look at that? So that was where the sea was in the mid-Holocene. So look at this whole area is inundated.
Wow.
By the mid-Holocene. Yeah, wow is right.
So that would be during the
Climate.
the climatic optimum.
It would appear to be sort of towards the end of the climatic optimum.
Okay.
So it's, at this point, the glaciers have probably gone the lowest they've gone throughout the Holocene. And of course, again, there's a lag. There's a warming, and then it may take a couple of millennia for the glaciers to fully melt away and for sea level to rise. But let's see here.
We're back to ads. Sorry, man. Sorry,
right
Moonraker.
here.
Sorry, man. I didn't see your message.
Let's see what the
Sorry, my
conclusions are. Yeah, okay, and this is
We got
another
24 though, my
interesting
dude.
takeaway. As a result of
I'm guessing you may have
studies
seen.
of 13 sediment cores extracted from various spots around and within the lagoon. This is at a different place. This is on the Baltic. So this is up on the
We're back to
coastline
ads.
of
Sorry, buddy.
Poland, right? Just to get some geographic diversity in there. So in this particular study, which was yes, this guy here, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and 10 others. Holocene relative water level and storminess variation recorded in the coastal peat bogs of Vistula Lagoon. I don't have that here yet, but let's see, I bet I could pull up Google Maps and we could look at it, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that the authors found that there are some similarities between the Vistula Lagoon storminess and the chronology of storm events along the western coast of Europe. These studies suggest that Holocene storms could increase during cooling periods in the northern hemisphere, whereas the results presented in this study indicate that stormy periods, although associated with cold periods in general, were more frequent during the transition between warm and cold periods. So what they're saying here, and this is confirmed by dozens of other independent studies, storminess and inclement weather and weather variability increases during times of global cooling, and it smooths out during times of global warming. The complete opposite of what we're being told.
And it's the most stormy during transitions between those two states.
Right.
When
which
it's
makes
going
sense.
from warm to cold.
Okay. From warm
Yes,
to cold. Yeah.
when it's going, that's what he said, right? You look at here, when it's more frequent during the transition between warm and cold.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was transitionary periods, and we've kind of talked about this a lot, saying that is the times where everything is.
Yeah, it's in flux. Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the other thing that they came up with, and this is important, something else we're also going to dive into. One other factor of this study needs to be emphasized. An analysis of carbon-13 isotopes and shifts in the species of green algae revealed that, quote, most of the periodicities observed in the present, this is periodicities in sea level going up and down and up and down, not stable at any point, moving up, moving down, moving up, moving down, sometimes by up to 1 meter and 2 meters or more. throughout the Holocene.
Yo,
Okay?
Moonraker.
Most of the period
When was
incidents
24? It was,
observed in the present study, as well as changes
20
in the
minutes ago?
Greenland Ice Sheet Project
20 minutes ago or so?
paleotemperature
Half an hour ago?
record correspond to those existing in power spectra of solar activity.
Yeah, we got it, my
As the
man.
authors
We got
conclude,
it.
quote, this evidence supports the conclusion that hydrological changes, including the frequency of storminess, have been driven mainly
Damn,
by
we're sleeping. Oh, no worries,
insolation
man.
force.
Thanks, buddy.
That
No
is
worries, buddy.
total
Thanks, man.
solar
Appreciate that, homie.
and related large-scale atmospheric forces.
Appreciate you being here, dude.
changes in the
Thanks,
northern
man.
Hemisphere. You'll
Yeah,
notice
23
they're
is not going to be easy.
attributing any of that to carbon
23 is
dioxide.
going to be a
Right.
battle,
the
I
sun,
think.
The sun. And
Maybe.
how many studies?
I got to
would it
YOLO
take
everything. I
to
got to
show
YOLO everything
that
now.
it's the sun. That the sun is the primary driver. Then you ask the question, why does the IPCC dismiss the sun and not include data correlating solar variability with changes in temperature and climate? Why not? Well,
Thanks, buddy.
as
They
it says
can't
here in other
regulate it.
words. No,
Yeah, I feel good. I feel quite
no,
good.
it does not help their story. That's
Tax
exactly
the sun.
right. Yeah. So,
Thanks, man.
one other graph I think would be
I appreciate that big time.
interesting to look at here. Go back and
And I think you pointed out before, like the Soho Solar Observatory, like started right when that first IPCC report was, like
Yeah.
92 also.
Yep. Yep.
We need to
Uh,
stop using the sun.
At least get a
By
dimmer
2030.
switch.
Stop this. Okay.
And you go full Mr. Burns. Like,
Yeah, but they seriously, like, I've read lots of stories where they're talking about putting, you know, spraying something or whatever
Yeah.
into the atmosphere to kind of shade the atmosphere a little bit or make it more reflective. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, it'll only be up there for like, you know, maybe a year or something, or like 6 months, and then, you know, we'll have to replenish it. And it's like, really, you really want to try that?
Yeah.
Like that seems.
Maybe we should think about that a little
Yeah.
bit more. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say earlier. Is that and then there's ideas of like, oh, we could build these big, you know, CO2 scrubbing facilities that are just scrubbing it out of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that to me is, I don't know. That's more
Okay,
reckless
so
sounding to me.
the next graph I'm going to show you is from 2007. It was published in Geology Today, based on the work of Peter G. Fuchs and E. Mark Lee. And it's a graph that shows it's a distillation of all the evidence drawn strictly from climate change. And this graph is departure from present day temperature. So on this graph, the vertical axis, the middle of that axis is the zero. And then the departure from the long term is going to be above or below that zero line. So in degrees, and it's in degrees
Should we be
centigrade.
seeing that one?
I'm about to pull it up.
Oh, okay.
So here we go. Are you seeing it now? Long-term global temperature changes.
Got it.
Got it. So here's your departure from present-day temperature, going back to the late Cretaceous. So this is in millions of years. So 65 million. So once we get back late Cretaceous, we're back into the dinosaur days. So since the dinosaur days, here's what the long-term global temperature changes have been doing. So beginning of the Cenozoic era, the modern era of life, the transition from Cretaceous to Paleocene. Then in the Eocene, we have the start of Ice Age conditions. We don't have any Ice Ages back here. This is the start of it. And then during the Oligocene, glaciers begin to develop in Antarctica. And finally, in the late Miocene and transition from Miocene to Pliocene, you have the initiation of continental ice sheets. So all of this time period, you don't have continental ice sheets. They start right here. And then here's the Quaternary Ice Age right here. comes, and notice how that when it crosses that zero line, that's the transition from the Pliocene into the Pleistocene. So it's this Quaternary Ice Age, which is the Pleistocene and Holocene, that's distinguished from what preceded it, because now we're below that zero line and we're now into the Ice Ages. So what you see from this right here, if we go back to the Cenozoic, if we go back to the beginning of the Cenozoic and into the end of the Mesozoic, what we can see is that we're essentially in the coldest epoch of the entire Cenozoic right now. So again, ask the question, what is the normal temperature for the Earth? Is this right here, the Quaternary temperatures, is that the normal? So when you say we're trying to get back, we assume, okay, it's going to be catastrophe if the ambient temperatures goes up more than a degree and a half, 1.5, that's the number we constantly hear now. What are we trying to get back to? Do we want what's the ideal temperature of the Earth that we're trying to get to? If it's too warm now, and the implication is that it is, because, we're seeing all of this severe weather happening right now, right? Frequency of everything is way worse. We can take any single thing we want and just analyze it, deconstruct it, and break it down. And, as we got into, and I think the last episode where we were looking at extreme weather events in the last couple of centuries, there were many, many weather events that exceeded anything we've experienced in the last few decades, right? Or even within the lifetime of anybody now living. So the question I would constantly ask is, what do we want to get back to then? If it's too warm now, because and obviously the implication is that it is too warm, because if we're seeing this increased frequency of floods and fires and droughts and heat waves and everything else, if that's happening right now, then clearly it's too warm, right? So what do we need to go back to? Do we need to go back to 19th century temperatures? Do we need to go back to the Little Ice Age? Is that what they're saying? See, nobody ever addresses that. Nobody says, okay, if we shut down all fossil fuel use by 2030 or even 2050, what's the end goal? The reason we're going to do that is what? To cool off the planet? Well, how much do we want to cool it off? To what? What it was before the Industrial Revolution? Well, if we go back, to the pre-industrial revolution, that wasn't necessarily such a great time. As they say, the last great subsistence crisis of Western civilization was that 1816 year without a summer, right? Now, that year without a summer was the result of two things. It was a solar minimum combined with a period of intense volcanicity. Those two things combined drove the temperature down to the point where you had snow in midsummer in latitudes as far south as New England. That we talked, I think, about that in one of our episodes, the year without a summer, didn't we? Yeah. Do we want to go back to that? Somebody explain, somebody answer that question. I think that's an important question. And what is the norm? Okay, so it all depends on your perspective. That's what we've seen over and over again. If you limit your perspective, then you can contrive almost any outcome you want.
Please let me know.
Again, it comes down to the range of the data you use and your factors of expansion or contraction. And by
I'm doing well, man. How about you, dude? We got
those,
24.
a lot of different impressions.
I said that when you
And
arrived,
so
but my
I
mic
think we've seen quite a few examples of that over
cooperating.
a number of episodes here now. And again, when you look at this graph right here, what's the optimum temperature? If we want to go, well, let's see. If we're looking at primary productivity, the actual volume or mass of life on the planet, well, it's been far greater in previous eras than it is now. So what's our criteria? If we look at this graph right here, what's the optimum? Is this what in the Quaternary Ice Ages, is that where we want to be? So these are the questions that nobody seems to be asking. But if you ask these questions and you point this out, what's the usual response from the advocates of it's, well, they call you names. You're a climate change denier. Now, of course, you know, from what we've
I was
done
just gonna
here,
go in and tell me
is
I'll
there
jack it.
anywhere at all in any of this over 92 episodes now where we've been denying climate change? I don't think so. I don't think I've ever heard any of you guys ever deny climate change.
I mean, this whole podcast is practically a study of massive climate changes.
Yeah, it is. So
There it is.
I'll do it. It doesn't happen.
There it is. First denial.
I mean, see, here you can use this as your standard. If somebody says, "Oh, just using the term climate change denier," it's like what you're doing is you're investing your credibility in something that doesn't even exist, unless maybe there's one guy out there somewhere. I don't know, where he is in the desert, in the woods. I don't know. One guy
Well,
out
pretty well.
there standing on the hill going, "I deny the climate. There is no climate." Maybe that guy is out there somewhere,
He could be.
but I don't think I've seen him writing any
Where you
scientific
moving, man?
papers lately.
No.
You might have been wearing a tinfoil hat.
Yeah, maybe it was that guy.
No
I think it
climate.
was Woody Harrelson in 2012.
Really, was he the
Where you
cartoon
moving, my dude?
caricature of somebody who was questioning the narrative?
He's like out on a mountaintop in Yellowstone yelling about half good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, in 2012.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but that 2012, I never saw that. That was that was based. That was the crustal shift idea.
Right, but yeah, there was asteroids.
No, okay, there was asteroids in 2012.
Oh yeah.
Well, what is the one I'm thinking of with I think it was Dennis. What's his name?
Oh yeah,
The global
sudden ice
warming.
age one
Armageddon.
that Art Bell
Armageddon?
No,
Sorry,
that
guys.
was
I didn't know that
Aztec.
phone call was gonna take an hour.
After tomorrow, that's the
I
one.
apologize. It's funny that I got
That was a
24
pretty
during
fun
that
movie
phone
to
call,
watch.
though.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I thought it was.
That's really
it
funny.
was, it was catastrophic. It was cool. So
Greenland
what-
was good. I don't. Did you? You probably didn't even see Greenland. That one
I
was
haven't
good.
seen that one yet.
All good.
I
Thanks,
haven't
bro.
seen
Thanks, man.
Greenland.
That's the Rock in that one. Yeah, that's definitely worth watching.
Oh,
My stream
okay.
keeps cutting out now. I don't know why. It keeps dropping.
If we raise, this is the real question,
just
Randall.
keep,
If we
like,
raise the temperature 10
occasionally
degrees
it
Celsius
just
to
dropped
keep the
end
dinosaurs
stream.
back. That's what I thought when I looked at that
I'm
graph.
streaming wirelessly. My laptop
do they
does get
just
hot,
sort of
but
magically
Yeah,
reincarnate.
yeah. So the climate change people, they don't want dinosaurs. That's the real. That's what's really happening.
Okay. Well, good question, Russ. Maybe you could research that before the next
I'll look
podcast.
into it.
And
Well, the thing it makes me think of is that
What's-
like we need to be aware as a civilization that our entire civilization is basically at very close to sea level,
yep.
and sea level rise and fall. These static pictures are
Plano,
the norm.
2 a.m.
So like we need to be prepared for moving entire cities when
Oh wow, Dallas.
as these things happen. It's like,
Dallas is rough. I can believe
in
it.
other words, the narrative is about really focuses on sea level change because everybody's so close to this, right? If we stop
That'll be good
whatever
for you, man.
our contribution to
Congratulations.
climate change is, those sea levels are still going to rise and fall as they have throughout geological time. So it's like no matter what, we have to be prepared for that as a civilization.
And see, that's one of the things I've been arguing for years now is that, well, yeah, climate change is very real. And we have to have procedures in place to be able to adapt to the stuff that's going to happen no matter what we do.
Yeah, so the fear that is being created, like, oh, we're going to be drowning and all this kind of stuff. It's like, well, yeah, but even if we did everything that they suggest, that will still happen.
Yes, and the downside of that is this. If we have basically, decommissioned, pulled the plug on our modern industrial civilization, where does
Then
that
you can't-
leave
yeah.
us when it comes to responding to natural climate change? That's
Right.
another question we need to be asking.
You've hamstrung yourself. If
You hamstrung yourself is exactly right.
yeah,
Yeah. And so I mean, take a look at the difference between the two great tsunamis that occurred, the one in the Indian Ocean and the one in the Pacific. The mortality factor of the Indian Ocean tsunami was what was like a couple of 100,000. It was an order of
Come on,
magnitude
man.
at least greater than the one in the Pacific that, you know, overwhelmed Japan and other. The
Yes.
mortality factor was based on this. There was no early warning systems in place in the Indian Ocean where there is early warning in the Pacific. That early warning system depends upon an advanced technological society.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what happened in the Indian Ocean, people were there. You know, the ocean gave warning. You know, because what happened? during a
Yo,
tsunami,
Southern Gel Jacket, are you
the
serious,
the water
man?
retracts.
Yeah.
Thanks,
But
dude.
if somebody's not educated
Thanks,
about
man.
that,
That's
they've
really
never
nice of
seen a
you.
tsunami,
You
because a
know, I
lot
hope
of
you don't
those
feel
people
obligated
go,
to.
"Oh,
I know you
cool,"
said
and they
you
go
were
out there and they're picking up shells.
Things
and
are a bit
stuff.
tight right
The
now,
next thing
man.
they
So I mean,
know,
I appreciate that.
Here
Yeah.
comes the tsunami.
Southern Gel Jacket is a legend, man.
A couple of 100,000 people lost their
I don't have any more
lives.
VIP
So
spots,
right
but I
there,
guess
you
I'm
see
mod.
the difference. That's a stark difference between what happens when you have modern industry and technology at your service as compared to when you don't.
Legend, man.
But that brings us to the question
Thank you, dude.
and it is legitimate question and
Thanks, man.
legitimate issues. We still
Hope you enjoyed
want
Texas,
to
man. Or I
minimize
hope you
our
enjoyed rural Texas.
impact on the environment. That's just
Right.
common sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
wanna
I bet
minimize
Dallas is
that
pretty
impact.
intense.
That's why I was pointing out, like with the in that graph where it shows the heat island temperatures going down. It's like the stuff that they're
I
doing
drove
in
through
the
North
cities to mitigate
Texas.
that is great. It really is.
Yes.
good. And it's beautiful.
I never went
too,
to
which is
Dallas, though.
nice. You know, when you go,
I
and
wanted
you
to,
see,
but I
like,
never had the chance.
greenery growing on the sides of buildings and the
Yep.
stuff that they do is it's really cool.
100%, 100%. And obviously, you do more of that. And what happens when you design your buildings to be, you know, adaptable to those kinds of environmental
Thanks, man.
changes rather than just
That's really cool of you, dude.
completely abstracted from the environment. So, I mean, you're actually paying
Again,
attention to things like the
I don't
direction
feel
of the
obligated,
sun
but I really appreciate
during
that. And
the
it really
course
does
of
help
the
me.
year. You're paying attention to the type of vegetation and foliage. You're paying attention to
much.
how wind is affected by topography. You're paying attention to the building materials you're using. All of that, you know, the
Thank you really
prevailing
a
wind
lot.
direction is important. If you
Gifted
design
5 in the
into that,
past,
and that,
too,
of
6
course,
or
is
7.
the trend of architecture.
Really cool you
is
do.
this is becoming a major
Oh, you
issue.
got the
Let's
turtle? You
design
got the little
cities
turtle
to
there in the
mitigate
water?
that urban heat island. And this is a
And congrats,
100% a
man,
good thing.
on
Yeah.
100%.
We should make them circular. with
Getting
concentric
fitter,
rings with water
getting
in
more
between
fit.
the rings, and it'd be much cooler.
Yeah. That's
good stuff. I might do a weightlifting stream later today. I'm probably going
Something
to.
else I should mention. Something else I should
Now that we
mention
got the
before we
PV, I'm
close
definitely
out
probably
is
going
that
to.
it's the thing I've been really diving into the
Be
last
good.
year or two
I
to
feel
try
good.
to understand. And, you know, like a lot of the things that could potentially be tinfoil hat type conspiracies, as opposed not, you know, that things that a lot of things that appeared to be on the, I think we talked about this in the live stream, last live stream episode we did, that some things that were fringe at one time are not so fringe actually anymore, right? Well, I think we had within reach of a matter of a decade or two completely alternative systems of energy that were lost or suppressed, deliberately, in fact, suppressed. We should probably even do a podcast about that at some point. The fate of people like Nikola Tesla and Victor Schauberger and Walter Russell and Wilhelm Reich and others, quite a few others, who were converging upon this understanding of alternate technology. And for whatever reason,
Guys, I think 23 is
their-
actually
their
like
knowledge,
possible
their
with this
discoveries
new
did
strat.
not make it, you know, into mainstream society. However, I think that's about to change, and that's going to be a subject of some of the upcoming.
That'd be insane if I can get
podcasts
23. That'd be so insane.
2023.
All right.
Exciting stuff.
Can you
yeah.
imagine?
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Brad? RandallCarlson.com for all your Randall Carlson needs.
Thing is, I
Check that
suck.
You guys heard
That's
all
the
stuff
issue.
about the trips, upcoming plans.
That's the
in
X
mid-show,
factor, my
so just,
sucking.
Once again, RandallCarlson.com.
Yeah,
All right,
like
gentlemen.
New place to furnish oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
dude, plasma TV. I had plasma. So nice.
First Saturday of each month, and then occasionally
love
there's
plasma
a
TVs.
special one in between if we got
Just stop
events or
working.
tours that we want to focus on and let everybody know as soon as it's available for
Yo, what up, Stash?
their
You doing, man?
involvement. So
Yeah,
that's the best
you guys.
way. Get the newsletter.
Switch
Yeah,
beer
sneak peek.
Zelda. Oh, dude,
Got a
that's
sneak peek-
awesome,
we got
man.
a sneak
You should
peek at
stream
the
it,
newsletter
dude.
in this episode. That's
Even
what-
without a
I was
camera.
just about to say that
Yeah.
Just stream
there's
it.
a much more detailed analysis.
Those
of
are like my
those two
favorite
papers,
streams.
one
Zelda,
and a
probably
couple
Zelda
others that are
rando
coming out
streams, or
this
probably my favorite Mario and
newspaper on
Zelda
Saturday.
rando streams.
All right.
And I got to get my ass in gear and finish it because Bradley and I are leaving on
What's up, Stash?
Saturday
You doing, man?
Yes.
Dirty.
for
All right,
Joe
gentlemen.
Rogan. So I'll
That
be
was a
hanging
great
out.
show, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
Salute.
good show. I thought
Enjoyed
too.
it.
That was a
Very
really good
good.
show. I was especially impressed by the last bunch of graphs
Oh,
graphs
man.
that you showed. That really caught my attention.
I would just like
Yeah.
I'm using just
I
a
like
general
hearing
off
that, man.
Amazon
And
a
it's good to know
$30
you're not an
USB
idiot.
1080p,
Not that I ever
let's say
thought you were,
1080p
but
or
I never
4K.
consider myself a
But I would
pretty
do
strong
1080p
liberal, but
or
I'm gonna say
4K.
this. I'm not prone to
Thing is,
conspiracy
4K
theories.
might lag a bit depending on your
I
computer.
can't say that there's
USB
a
cam,
massive worldwide
just a simple one,
conspiracy
30
to,
bucks or so on Amazon.
the behind the IPCC, whatever. To me, that belongs with theories.
Nothing.
like
You don't have to
the
get something too
Bilderbergers and all
fancy.
that.
Just, you don't, and don't
But what I
get
will say is
anything like
this.
too shitty.
There is a tendency.
Make sure it's 1080p or
on the
better.
left, extreme left, when it comes to the climate, to engage in some really ridiculous thinking.
I'm
To me, there
streaming
seems
at
to be an undercurrent of
60
not
frames per second.
Simply anti-technology, but anti-humanity.
I don't know if my cameras can do
That-
60
that
frames per
sometimes
second,
it seems
but
to me that there is a
seems like it might be
there's a
able to.
suicidal urge on the extreme left to
don't
reduce
know.
us all
might be
to
30.
tribes living in the woods. Yeah, I really. You think about that. You go back to the hippie movement.
So with USB
When
cams,
the
what's
communists and all
frustrating
people
is I
moving out
can't
in the
use
woods getting back
two
to the
extension
land.
cords. I don't know
Well,
why it won't
as-
let
as
me.
one
It
of my
just doesn't work.
Philosophy professors
I have to use
once
only.
said,
I can only use
you know,
one, which is
He
about.
was quoting. I forgot who was quoting, but life in
6
a state
feet
of
long.
nature is nasty, brutish, and short.
Then there's the cord of the webcam, which is about
But I
3
think there are
feet.
people who want to.
So you have about 9 feet to work with.
We were talking earlier about getting rid of all
But I guess
carbon.
if you
yeah,
switch-
there is that movement out there.
put your computer
but
nearby.
but it is unrealistic.
But I guess if you plug it into
We
the
can't
switch, you'd be
simply
plugging the USB cam
Stop
into
all
the
energy
switch and not
consumption.
the
We can't
computer.
simply stop burning fossil fuels. We can reduce them. No, there's no need to live in a nasty planet where the air is
Dope, that'd
is
be dope.
bad,
You
the
see you
water is
streaming, that'd be
bad.
sick, man.
You know,
No.
we don't need to starve ourselves. We don't need to suffocate ourselves. We don't need to shit in our nest. You know, but you know, when you point out graphs like you've been showing at the last half of this episode, it really brings some startling information that completely counteracts a lot of what I consider propaganda on the left. I appreciate that.
well, thank you, Mike.
I will say that's generally the people that they say will survive
Yo,
a
nice
catastrophe,
chat.
though, right? The indigenous people that are
Yeah.
familiar with living off the land and aren't counting on energy and other
Well,
things.
if
I
you
don't
read
think that's
Graham's
what. Go ahead.
if you read Graham's books, that's probably who survived the last catastrophe.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have a
Yeah.
catastrophe that collapses the advanced civilization, then yeah, the people who are going to be able to survive are the ones that weren't advanced. Because nothing changes for them as long as they're in the right place. Yeah.
Well, I think what we've seen over the last couple of years is that it wouldn't take much. I mean, our civilization is not on a firm foundation right now.
Pretty flimsy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that needs to change, and it can change.
That's right.
But it starts with policy, and those policies have to be based on reality, not fantastical agendas, like what Mike was just talking about.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
okay,
Bring back
well,
the
guess we
dinosaurs.
better get
Thanks for
going.
your. I appreciate your input, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
That's right. I
Yeah.
was going to ask. Glad you put some in there at the end. Yeah.
All right.
Excellent show, Randall.
Thanks, Brad. Talk
Wow.
to you tomorrow, Brad.
You got
Good
it.
night, guys.
Good
All
night.
right. Good night.
Bye, guys.
Cheers, everybody.
Night.
That might be 23 pace. Wow, that's still 24. Third and fourth camera were pretty slow. Like this is 24 pace. I'm getting better at the end. This is such a good talk.
Welcome back to the Uncharted X podcast. This is Ben, and I have a very special guest for this episode. Someone who should need no introduction to most of you. Author and journalist, Graham Hancock. Over the last 30 years, Graham has written a number of books spanning several different subjects, but is perhaps best well known for his groundbreaking work exploring the possibility for a lost ancient civilization.
Yo, really, thanks for that
One that
sub,
was
bro.
both
That's really cool,
global
you
and
dude. Thanks,
advanced in
man.
nature, existing prior to the
Wow.
great cataclysm of the Younger Dryas some 12,800 years ago, and long before the known ancient civilizations in our mainstream story of human history. Beginning with Fingerprints of the Gods in 1995, Graham first suggested the possibility of a global cataclysm based on evidence from ancient cultures and sites around the world.
Oh
But
shit.
it wasn't until
That was close.
2006
I'm gonna Google where
when the
Platinum
first
is.
of what is now more than 200 peer-reviewed scientific papers were published, vindicating his work with the establishment of the Younger Dryas cosmic impact hypothesis. Hancock explored this work extensively
Oh, wow.
in 2015. with
Still
his
near,
sequel,
still like the
Magician's Law.
Dallas
And in
area.
2019 followed that up with
I
the
guess you were
publication
downtown
of
before.
America Before, the key to
Cool,
Earth's
man.
lost civilization, where he tackles the mystery of the lost history of the American continent, and it's a highly recommended read. You can find much more information, links to all of his books, and lots of great posts and a very active discussion forum over on Graham's website.
Yeah,
which is
I drove through Wichita
grahamhancock.com.
Falls
Personally speaking,
and
I have
Oklahoma
much to
City
thank Graham
and
for.
Amarillo
His work
to
served
New
as a
Mexico.
source of inspiration for me, and
We dipped down in
after having
Texas a
had
bit,
the
we
privilege
didn't.
of traveling with him through Peru
That was my
and
bad,
Bolivia,
actually.
first
I
in
was the
2013,
map guy.
and
I
then through
drove
Egypt
with
in
my friend
2015. I made
to
the
a
decision
conference
to
in
put a
Albuquerque
20-year
from
career in IT and
Toronto,
pursue my own
and
investigations into the mysteries of our
I
past full-time, which, along with
was
being
the
a
map
radical
guy, and I made him
life
go
change,
south,
ultimately led to the creation
and it
of this
added
job.
like 2.5
As
hours for
surreal
a
and
trip.
challenging as it is at times, these last several years have been
I felt really
intensely
bad, but we got to see a lot of
gratifying
Texas, and he was
I
kind of
wouldn't
happy about
swap it
that.
for anything.
But it did
So
suck a
many
bit.
thanks to Graham for his work, and also for sharing
Oof,
some
yeah.
of his valuable time with me.
But we were
I
making
hope you
great
all
time. We were
enjoyed the
making insane time. We were driving
All right,
across
well, an
America.
absolute pleasure. I'm very
It was
pleased to
insane
welcome
trip.
Graham Hancock to the podcast. Graham, it's great to see you.
We did Toronto,
Nice to be back with you, Ben.
Chicago,
Yes, thanks for taking the time.
then we
to
stayed
talk
like
with
3
me
nights in
today.
Chicago.
Pleasure.
Yeah, very much looking forward
Then we
to it.
drove
I have been
into
for a
Route
few years, and I know we've been
66
going back and forth a little bit, trying to make it happen
to
Playing email tag
Through
on
St.
this,
Louis.
On this interview
for a
for
couple of
about
years.
4 years.
we
or
did not stay
something
in
like
St.
that.
Louis. St. Louis is
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, I did.
Nice,
So I
Eric's
did
in
manage
St.
to.
Louis
I think
now.
I saw you briefly in 2019 on. It must have been
Experience
a
you remember
whirlwind
for, like,
experience
yeah.
on your book tour.
Then we
for
went
America
to
Before.
Grand
I thought the book
Canyon.
For America Before.
We went to
yeah,
Monument
it was a
Valley.
whirlwind experience, yeah.
Yeah.
Those book
We
tours
drove
all
through
bizarre.
Colorado. It was amazing.
Yeah, and I wanted to tell everyone too, if you haven't got it,
Incredible.
very much recommend getting this. It moves all of the work that Graham's done in Fingerprints and Magicians forward. It's a great book. I've certainly got a lot of questions for it. The one thing I did want to maybe start with was
Drove across
this has to do
Nebraska,
with-
which sucked.
It's a bit of a thank you. You probably hear this
Man,
from a lot of people,
Nebraska's,
but it also
fucking
leads to a question, which is, you know, it's your
Shite
work, and
state.
in particular the privilege that I had to travel with you through Peru in
Sorry,
2013
Nebraska.
and then Egypt again in 2015.
Yeah.
That really led me to a massive life change. So, I after 2015, and I'd
I'm not
been
hating, it's just
increasingly
every other
more
state was
enthralled
pretty
and drawn
incredible.
into this world of ancient civilizations and mysteries that surround them. And it was 2016. I more or less quit my job in IT, and I've been doing full-time investigation and trying to scratch a living out of the internet from it, I guess, ever since. And it's led me to some incredible experiences. I've got to know Randall Carlson, travel with him, Chris Dunn, Tony Zamora, a whole bunch of people.
Oh, brutal.
So I kind of have you to thank.
is
for
Dollars
that. So I
statistics
wanted to get that
lecture.
out of the front, so.
Well, thank you indeed. I appreciate it. Glad to have played some role in your transformation.
Indeed you have. So the one thing that I wanted to start with was that the trip in Egypt in 2015 was something that opened my eyes, in particular to, I guess, kind of the mainstream resistance to new ideas.
Yeah,
that
I
challenge
studied
the
a lot of
existing
stats.
paradigm
I
of
worked a lot
history.
with
And,
stats.
you know, this was the
tree
location
ecology.
of that infamous Zahi Hawass debate, and it was a,
And like forest ecology.
an eye-opening experience from the perspective of
Trees don't move,
there's a real
and they
lack
grow
of
extremely
willingness
slowly.
to kind of engage, and ever since I've been digging into
So
it,
the only thing you can really do with it is
was,
stats.
It was a curious thing. In many ways, I wish I could.
That's all you can really do.
Because, you know,
Or
Zahi has
genomics.
has sort of comes across certainly in the alternative history movement as a bit of a hate figure. But just like you and me,
Is he
he's
working
a
with
human
them? With
being.
what?
You
Stats?
know, with his own hopes and his own ambitions and his own fears and his own dedication
It's
to his
investigation
own
of the
work.
truth,
And
looking
actually,
for
when we
patterns,
set
looking
up
for-
that debate, it was done in good
There's all
faith.
600
I
pound
hadn't
grads,
really had an
yeah.